Michael Washington. Mark is being a pompous ass before we came on air, and Mark Angst.
I mean, you are. I'm not. I mean, you are.
Eli Manuel.
Why would you draft a wide receiver, too?
Eli, you can cut this out.
You can leave it in, too.
Restart.
Kyler Murray has a fantastic arm. It's just the decision-making for him, for me. Michael Vick just made better decisions, I feel like, overall.
Makes sense. I said 1 or 2 inches, growing 1 or 2 inches, and you're like...
And he's still going...
I have legal on too many apps. I don't know what to follow.
Happy Thursday. College football week 1 is in full swing. Colorado just went on a scoring drive against North Dakota State. If you're watching that game, looks like Travis Hunter Shadur Sanders score for all you college football fans out there. But we're here to talk about fantasy football. The NFL season is right around the corner. We're about a week away. Actually, we're exactly a week away. As Kansas City and Baltimore are going to open up Thursday. I'm Michael Washington. He's Mark Angst. This is Dynasty Academy, as always, here on the Shady Sports Network. First and foremost, let's talk about the big news, Mark, and see if it changes anything.
But before you do that, don't forget, there's a game on Friday that week, too. So it's Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday.
Correct. Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. Yep. Because what is it? It's in Brazil, right? It's the Jets, Eagles?
Yeah. No, Eagles and
Packers.
Not the Jets.
Eagles
Packers.
and Packers. Yeah, that's right. I knew it was another green team against a green
Another
team.
green team, yeah. They're not allowed to wear green. No green from 2 teams that wear green.
No green from 2 teams that wear green. Yep. That'll be interesting for sure. But first and foremost, let's talk about the big news that just happened right before we came on air, within a half hour, 40 minutes?
Yeah, pretty much.
Something like that. Brandon Ayuk signs a $30 million a year deal with the 49ers. Now, this has been an interesting development over the course of the summer because there was trade rumors. He wanted to be out of San Francisco. Then he said he wanted to be in San Francisco, blah, blah, blah. With the contract now wrapped up and us being late into this season, let's just give a quick preview to what it does to a redraft value, in your opinion. Does it drop him because it's so late, or does it matter?
No, he's with the same team. It's same quarterback, same offense. I mean, did they change anything? Is there any other than Ricky Pearsall being their wide receiver 3 now, possibly, maybe?
Great
anything
job,
else different?
Great job, San Francisco. Spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver and then sign the guy that...
I think Debo's gone next year.
Oh, yeah, most likely. What does it do long-term for fantasy-wise? Does this increase his value at all? Does it help him? Does it hurt him? Is it the same? What is your... I mean, for me, I don't think it hurts him.
It doesn't hurt at all. It definitely is a good thing. I don't know that it moves him up a ton because I never moved him till something happened. I wasn't gonna drop him way down because he was gonna play either way,
right?
In my opinion. So, he's probably around the same area for me. I mean, I'd have to go back and look and see where I had him ranked originally, but it's pretty where he is where he is. Yeah, he was 13 for me. I don't know that okay, maybe he moves above T. Higgins for now because we don't know what T. Higgins. But I have Olave and JSN ahead of him. I'm not changing that just because Debo's still there. The CMC is still there. Kittle is still there. It's still an offense that's going to score a lot of points, and he's going to be, I think, the wide receiver 1. But it's still a lot of options around him too.
Well, I mean, you just mentioned that you have him that you think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 and whatnot. Do you think this offense shifts though, where they start doing a little more through him and less through Debo as they do the transition? If in fact Debo's gone in the next year or so, because realistically speaking, if you think about this offense, it's always gone CMC and then pretty much Debo. I mean, when he's healthy, and then it goes, Ayuk and then Kittle, give or take, depending on the game flow. with this long-term contract and the amount that they're paying him, you would think that that pecking order would probably change a little bit, yeah?
I don't. Him and Debo are quite different in their roles as it is. I don't think the offense is going to change, especially if they do plan on getting rid of Debo. I think they're just going to use him up, just run him into the ground, throw him, whatever you want to say for a wide receiver, running back, whatever he is. I don't think it's going to shift the balance of that offense. It's still going to run through CMC, and then they'll throw off a play action, whatever, because it's a team trying to win a Super Bowl. They're not going to shift their focus at this point until one of them is gone, whether they trade Ayuk next year or they trade Debo. I think with this signing, with Trent Williams needing to get something, Purdy is got to be getting close to where he's going to need a contract. Debo's probably the odd man out at this point. Not that Ricky Pearsall is a replacement for him, but you did draft him in the first round, so it's obviously you have to do something. You're not. Maybe Pearsall gets traded then. I don't know, but
yeah, waste of a first round pick in my opinion. I mean, even if Ayuk didn't resign, even if Ayuk didn't resign, I still think it was probably a waste of a first round pick.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
I just don't like Pearsall. So the only other thing that I want to say here is there was a report that just came out. I don't know if you saw it right before we came on air, that San Francisco offered a third round pick for Cortland Sutton, and then Ayuk was going to get traded to Pittsburgh in a 3-team trade, and Denver reportedly declined, which I thought was interesting because I feel like a third round pick for Cortland Sutton at 28 years old is really kind of overpaid in sense of where we've seen a lot of these receivers go. Why would Denver decline in this situation?
Unless they really like what they've seen from Bo Nix and think they can be competitive this year. I don't like that team altogether. It doesn't seem like it, but in their minds, maybe.
If you're relying on a rookie quarterback, you're not going to be competitive. Like CJ Stroud was like a 1 in like a billion thing. Like he's an outlier. He's not the norm.
Agree, but this is Sean Payton we're talking about.
True.
I mean, we saw what he did with New Orleans, running that team pretty much into the ground, chasing a championship they never got. Terrible contracts to try to run it back.
And Dennis Allen's still paying the price for it.
And I mean, granted, we don't know that it's a third round pick. That's the only other thing
No, it was reported that it was actually like a third round pick, but
we don't.
Maybe it was conditional. I don't know. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, with San Francisco, I mean, they're still third round pick though. To me, that doesn't make a difference. But that's with it being Sean Payton. I mean, I don't even think that defense is going to be that good. Like, I could understand if it was a team with a really good defense and that offense maybe is just good enough, they could ride into the playoff. I just don't, as a whole, think that team is that good.
On
Sean Payton, we're talking about.
On paper, I have Denver currently with the third pick in the NFL draft next year.
Giants, Panthers, Denver.
Man, you just off the top of my head, yeah, I think that sounds about right. It was Giants, Panthers, Denver.
Because I think the Cardinals will be sneaky goodish. But I don't think they will be as
better.
low.
I don't think they'll be I don't think they'll be low. Who was it? It was, let's see, nobody in the. Oh no, it was the Giants, Patriots, Denver.
Oh, Patriots! I forgot about them. Yeah,
Giants, Patriots, Denver, and I had Carolina 4th, I think, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not predicting the Giants will have the number 1 pick, but it really comes down to Daniel Jones. If he plays well, you're not getting rid of him, and you're going to have a good team. If he doesn't, you're getting rid of him, and you're taking the quarterback with their pick. For me, it doesn't matter.
I just think it's hard. If you look at the Giants situation, I think it's hard because you basically are trusting Daniel Jones only, right? Because Devin Singletary is a huge step down for Saquon Barkley. They lost Darren Waller, who was a playmaking tight end when he was healthy. So you don't even know who the starter is right now. I mean, Daniel Bellinger.
It's going to be both of them. They're going to
like
make
whatever.
it now.
And you're relying on a rookie wide receiver in Malik Neighbors, and there's literally not much behind him. So, the Giants on offense are fairly void of talent, and then on defense, I don't know if they got better. I think. Sorry, they got better up front with Brian Burns, but in the back half, I don't know if they got better. So
they didn't, because you lost McKinney. If you could have kept McKinney, that defense could have been very dangerous. But now you're very front heavy with good talent, and the rest of that linebacker, defensive back is just we'll see.
I do want to shift gears here and talk about another wide receiver, another high profile wide receiver, and I mentioned it a little bit in the chat without bringing it up, and this was not something that you and I discussed off air or anything, but the Jamar Chase situation is really weird. This situation is not only necessarily getting worrisome for Chase owners, it is now getting to a point where it might be worrisome for Bengals fans, and Bengals inside personnel. Zach Taylor came out and said that he was going to practice, and then he just nonchalantly showed up to the stadium, walked onto the field in sweats and like whatever else. It really sent the message to me that he does not care if he wants to be there. Like, that's the message it sent to me, which is extremely strange. Like, he just acted like he didn't.
Don't speak on telling me what I'm going to do. Like, I don't know if he took Zach Taylor's comment as like a threat, like you're gonna practice and he's gonna be ready for week 1. I think is kind of what the comment was, and then he showed up for practice, not practicing.
Right,
and then Zach Taylor comes out and says, "We'll see what happens." So, like, was it your message to him, like, don't say I'm gonna do something unless you like clearly there's a divide between coach and wide receiver, which is not something you want when that's supposed to be your top guy.
And to be honest with you, I'm not even sure it's necessarily a divide between coach and wide receiver that started it. I think it's become a divide between coach and wide receiver because I think it was a divide between the front office and Chase originally, because Chase wants a deal.
That comment just
It's
just a weird comment to make, and then for him to not even come out in pads.
So what does this do for an outlook in this situation? What's the overall outlook? Because Chase is obviously a talented individual, and you don't necessarily have to 100% worry about him if he goes somewhere else. However, they do have T. Higgins on a tag, and not much behind either guy. So they are kind of at a crossroads. And what do you do in this situation? Right? Do you sign T. Higgins and hope you can sign Chase later, or like?
I don't know if the T. Higgins did the Saquon Barkley thing from last year, where he signed a 1-year deal, maybe got a little extra money from what the tag would have been.
Yeah, so it wasn't a tag. Yeah,
I don't think you can sign a deal now until the offseason hits, with how those things are structured. I think because when you're on the franchise tag, you can't sign a deal once you hit a certain point. And I think when you do these little 1-year deals, because if I remember with Saquon, they couldn't then negotiate another contract with him until he became a free agent or was tagged again.
No, I think they can, but I think it's like at a certain point, because if you have the rights for him under contract in the old year, you have the right to negotiate a contract extension. They just can't sign him to a new contract. So they they should be able to get a contract extended, because that was, if you watched Hard Knocks, that was the thing that they were talking about, was an extension with the Giants. They were talking about an extension, and then they decided that instead of offering him an extension, they were to let him test the market with them to keep in mind. So I think Higgins can do it. I just don't know what the point is, or where the point is for him to be able to sign an extension. So,
well, I think it's if they decide that they're not getting anywhere with Chase, let's at least lock one of them up. That's what.
Okay.
What's worrisome to me in the situation is you have 2 wide receivers who Cincinnati is known to be a owner who is not willing to spend a ton of money. Now, obviously, Joe Burrow got paid.
So bad for so long.
Correct. Joe Burrow got paid. So now is he like, well, okay, well, we're not paying a ton of money to all these other guys now, so figure it out. But like, when you have a good team, you have to pay your top guy. Like, this is This is why the Bengals, the Browns, and these teams are constantly bad, because you can get good when you are on these rookie deals and you're good enough to you draft well, but you have to then retain some of it. And when you have two wide receivers who are now unhappy, that starts to speak to ownership.
Well, so let me ask you this question then, from a dynasty perspective. What does this do to Chase? Like I said, we don't worry about him too much about going somewhere else. However, how long is this going to play out? I mean, we're literally 7 days away from the start of at least the start of the season, or at least the first game played in the start of the season, and there doesn't seem to be any like progress in this situation. So, what does this do for a Jamar Chase situation? Um, you know, moving forward, as far as his value is concerned, does it change anything? Because I feel like it does slide him down.
I was gonna say, if I was doing a startup right now, and a lot of times it was Jefferson, Chase. Now Lamb's kind of creeped ahead of Chase, I don't think I'm taking Chase as even the third wide receiver right now.
I agree.
Because I don't disagree that, yes, where he goes doesn't matter a ton because of who he is, but he's also not been the most consistent wide receiver at times either. And it's always been with, for the most part, a good quarterback with Joe Burrow. Yes, he's had other ones, but in those times it hasn't been as well because the quarterback's not as good. You go to the Patriots. Are you feeling as good with him being a Patriot?
I mean, for me, yes, but that's because I
But
like
you would
Alex.
still take him as the
I
wide
trust
receiver
I
3?
trust Alex Van Pelt. So,
But you would trust him as the wide receiver 3 overall still then?
with Drake May, as long as Drake May showed the improvements, absolutely.
So I mean,
No
but
problem at all.
you're doing that startup right now. You don't know anything.
Well, that's the thing, though.
Obviously your
Like
starter.
right now, doing the startup right this second, I don't think you could take him as a wide receiver 3 because you just don't know where he's going to go. Like,
That's what I mean. Like, he's
like there's
foolproof
certain teams,
to a point.
there's certain teams that like I'm not going to be like, yes, like it doesn't matter. There are a few teams that he could go to that I'm kind of like,
Now,
you know what I mean? So
he was my wide receiver 2 in my rankings. I'm not moving him past wide receiver 6.
yeah, that's about where I have him, I believe, off the top of my head, if I remember. So
DJ Moore and Tyreek are my 7, 8, and I just don't think I can move Chase below them. DJ Moore is good, but age, that team, that quarterback, like Keenan's there,
rookie
Rome's
quarterbacks,
there,
like rookie quarterbacks are just rookie quarterbacks in general. You have to take in. I know that he can grow into it, but DJ Moore signed a 4-year deal. By the time that Caleb should hit his stride, it's gonna likely be like year 3. So I mean that's gonna be DJ Moore at the end of his contract. So you know what I mean? Like
for me, it's Amon-Ra moves ahead of him, Garrett Wilson moves ahead of him, and I'm moving AJ Brown ahead of him.
Yeah, I can agree with that. AJ Brown, I probably would leave Chase ahead of Brown.
That's the teetering point. I'm still taking Brown right now. I'm taking the.
I just think that those are like A and B. I don't. You know what I mean? Like I can understand putting Brown ahead of him, and I can understand having Chase ahead of Brown. So, all right.
But then I'm not trading him. I'm going out. I'm sending offers, lower offers.
Try to see if you can get Chase.
Yeah, I mean you're not going to lowball somebody, but you can maybe instead of 3 firsts it was going to take, maybe you can get 2 firsts and a second now.
Yeah, exactly. Now let's talk about what sparked this entire show. the part of the show that we really wanted to highlight and discuss was the evaluation in the value standpoint of Puka Nacua, right? Because at this point in time, Puka is going really high, and there's a lot of people that have him listed as like wide receiver 3 in some cases, wide receivers 4 even. And you wanted to talk about whether or not that's too high, correct?
Well, it sparked it because of something I saw, a deal people were discussing and taking the Puka side by a large majority. And I was like, are you kidding me? So they were talking about Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson for Puka Nacua, and they were all in on maybe Olave Wilson, but most likely Puka Nacua. And that was when I was like, wait, we've gotten to the point where Chris Olave, for most people, probably is in their top 15, 16 wide receivers. Garrett Wilson, I thought, was in most people's at least top 8. And then you're taking Puka for them. So that means you're doing deals like if you are going to get Jamar Chase, guys like that. They get top 4 wide receivers deals.
That's crazy to me. So I can understand it from a standpoint of if you're looking short term, if you're looking for a year or two. However, Olave and Wilson together, no, there's no way. The only reason why I say I can understand it in the short term is because if you're a contender now and you're looking to be a contender, I think Puka has the best quarterback of the 3, and that includes Aaron Rodgers. And primarily that's just because Aaron Rodgers is 40-something and he's coming off an Achilles injury, and we don't really know what he's really truly going to be once the pads are on, right? Like we're not sure. However, I think long term, I'd rather have Wilson and Olave any day of the week. And man, that's crazy. So it was that high because I know that I traded Puka in the league, and I think it was Atlanta that we were in together. And I don't remember what my return was off the top of my head, but a lot of people were really pissed off about it. And you and I were both kind of like, does Cooper Kupp suddenly not exist? Like,
oh yes, now I remember what you're talking
about. Yeah, you remember. I don't remember what the trade was that I got in return, but yeah, like
T. Higgins and AD Mitchell.
Oh, that's right. T. Higgins and AD Mitchell was my return, where I had Higgins and Puka like right near each other. So yeah. So
I mean, yeah, even if you're like
that's crazy.
You're wary of the T. Higgins situation, you're still getting another rookie wide receiver with high upside. Like I understand. Cooper Kupp was also was he 3rd round?
Yeah, he was a 3rd round pick.
And Puka's a 5th round. And I get sometimes that doesn't matter, but it still somewhat matters. And Cooper was injured to begin last year, and Puka took advantage of that time, got a great rapport with Matthew Stafford, and continued for the season even once Kupp was back, but still, obviously coming back from injury. I want to say it was a soft tissue injury, so that takes more time than people realize. But he's healthy right now. There are no lingering, nobody's talking about him at all. So if you're drafting Puka Nacua or trading for him by sending those 2 guys, you are literally, you need to be better than he was last season. And I can't imagine that it's gonna like.
I guess my biggest concern would be the fact that at the end of the day, this was still a rookie wide receiver last year. Even though he set all kinds of records, he was still a rookie wide receiver. Anquan Boldin held that reception record, and Boldin never ended up being a wide receiver, like true wide receiver 1 in fantasy world. He was a great wide receiver, just more so in NFL purposes than fantasy purposes.
He was a wide receiver, a really, really good wide receiver too. Like he was the Robin to Larry Fitzgerald. He was, when he went to Baltimore, he kind of was their possession wide receiver. He was just never like huge fantasy season guy.
This just makes me wonder from a standpoint of, are we going to see Puka in a sense? if Puka starts off hot, is there a sense that we could see Puka move into Justin Jefferson territory? Like
in the community, yes.
oh man, that's crazy to me, man. Like I love Puka. You know I was on Puka before almost anybody else that we know. Anyways,
You and Eli were the two.
right.
Both of you. I remember we did a show and you both talked about him as, because he was the BYU guy.
And I'll be honest,
he
was. And I'll be honest with you, I never expected in my wildest dreams what he did last year to be the thing.
No.
However, I do think that he plays a great complement to Cooper Kupp. I think they both can exist. It's just Puka doesn't have that. I don't think he has the true ability to take over a game the same way that some of these other wide receivers do.
I don't think so either. So I've looked up some other trades. Jahmyr Gibbs or Puka Nacua. I mean, I don't have obviously league specifications, but
probably Gibbs, only because in the fantasy world he's one of the top 3 running backs, and the running backs get kind of shifty after a certain point. Dynasty purpose though, probably. I mean, I don't know, Puka maybe.
See, for me,
it's so close.
That's
a coin flip.
I'm taking Gibbs. Like I don't know. I would much rather have that. Like we're talking about a young running back.
Yeah. I mean, they're both from the same class,
in a dynamic offense. Those type of players should get you better than because I don't look at Puka as a wide receiver 1 player. I think he's going to be around, maybe a high end wide receiver 1, low end wide receiver 2. Gibbs has the opportunity to be the top running back.
Yeah, for sure.
For multiple years.
Yeah.
Moving forward once, we kind of get out of the CMC timeline.
Yeah, no, that for sure. And I do view Puka as a wide receiver 1, but I don't think I'd ever see him in a top 6 role.
Right. Kyron Williams and Puka or CD Lamb.
No, Lamb. Lamb. And that's not even close to me, only because of the fact that Lamb has solidified himself inside that top 3 at the wide receiver position. So
granted, yes, that could have been before obviously Lamb signed his deal, but if I changed the running back, if I said to you ETN and Puka or CD Lamb.
No, CD Lamb. I'm still taking CD Lamb. And that's strictly just because out of the players that you're mentioning, he's the one that has the game-changing ability. And
I don't disagree. I just wanted to give you I know because Kyron is not a guy either one of us are high on. So
Puka's a volume guy. That's the thing with Puka is he is a volume guy. He is a very high-end volume guy, and I think that he gets the work because that's just the way that the Rams offense runs, which is fantastic. It's fine. However, he's not the guy who's going to go 4 for 137 and 2 touchdowns.
I think you're going to love this one.
CD Lamb actually is that kind of guy, so that's why I'd take Lamb there for sure, especially from a dynasty perspective too.
These are all dynasty ones. I don't know league specifications, but they are all dynasty ones. Justin Jefferson and Josh Jacobs, or Trey McBride, Puka Nacua, and Warren from Pittsburgh.
Jefferson.
But it's not close to me. Like the fact that these are even questions to people or trades that are. That's not like that. That's to me saying Puka and Jefferson are so close together that so maybe it's a tight end premium, so you're getting McBride as that little extra because Jacobs and Warren are not equal. You can't say straight up I would take Warren over Jacobs.
And I don't think I would trade Jacobs for McBride and Warren by himself either. So I mean, that's
I agree,
crazy.
but high tight end premium, whatever. But that's still saying Puka and Jefferson are that close together that I'm willing to just that's the kind of thing I'm looking at. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jaden Reed, and Jaylen Warren for Kyron, a 4th, and Puka. So Amon-Ra and Puka, you're getting Amon-Ra and Jaden Reed for pretty much Puka Nacua because a 4th and Kyron Williams Are they that high on this Rams offense that you want Kyron Williams and Puka over having Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jaden Reed?
If you're out there listening to the show and you're in one of my leagues and I own Puka Nacua, please give me a trade like that. Please, I'm begging you. Send me Jaden Reed and Amon-Ra St. Brown for Puka, and it would be one of the fastest accepts I've ever had in my life. Look, this is crazy, man.
Justin Jefferson and a fourth, or Puka, McConkey, and a third. So we'll just go Puka and McConkey or Justin Jefferson, because the third and fourth don't really matter.
Justin Jefferson easily.
It's not close.
Not even close.
But this is where we are at the point where Puka is now third behind CeeDee Lamb, with Jamar Chase obviously having these issues, I think.
That is nuts, man.
That's what I was when I just could not believe this was where we were at with Puka. It blows my mind.
Yeah, that's mind-boggling to me. I mean, it now explains the outrage in the Atlanta League that we had, where I got traded for T. Higgins and A.D. Mitchell, and why people were so upset about supposedly handing the championship over to the defending champion. Very weird, very strange. Like, I get it, but we're still talking only 1 year. I mean, if 1 year made a guy to be that high, Peyton Hillis would have been the first running back taken every year after his first year, that 1 year. Like, oh man, that's crazy. Like, I love Puka too. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Puka, but that is some crazy trades aspect that you were spitting there.
I just you're pretty much saying he's now on the level of almost CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson. That's, maybe they're tier one, but that means Puka's tier two, and it's just not. He's probably tier 3 at best for me.
Puka?
Yeah.
Really?
You would have him in your tier 2?
Yeah. I'd have him in my tier 2. I'd have him in my tier 2 pretty easily, and primarily that's just because I feel like that this Rams offense is going to make him the primary option moving forward. However, here's the one thing that we got to tie in all of this together, right? Quarterback. After Stafford leaves, what happens with Puka if they don't find the right guy?
Stetson Bennett ain't making you feel good?
After Stafford leaves, what happens with Puka at that point? Because let's face it, a lot of times when you take a wide receiver, you're focusing on a wide receiver, you're tying him to the quarterback for the most part. You can make the same case about Chris Olave, but I feel like even with, I think Derek Carr kind of gets a lot of shit that he doesn't necessarily deserve per se. However, Derek Carr is probably, whoever replaces Derek Carr is probably going to be a step up from where he is, at least now in Chris Olave's career, right? Like, most likely.
Yes, he's not on Stafford's level of how he's playing.
And you look at Garrett Wilson, and you don't know what's happening with the Jet situation, because let's face it, I mean, Aaron Rodgers could say he's going to play another 2 years, but he can come back this year and look like Peyton Manning in his last year and be absolutely friggin' dreadful for all we know, and decide, yeah, my body can't take this. I'm crazy. I'm going to go pretend to be a politician. So, and you don't know what's going to happen there. So I understand maybe being a little bit hesitant with Olave and Wilson. Not together. I can understand them being a little bit hesitant as far as like, sure, maybe wanting to move on one for one type of deal. Not 2 for 1, because those two guys are still young enough where they're going to most likely still eventually find a guy and be the guy and produce.
Well, and we've seen both of them do it for multiple years. I mean, Garrett Wilson didn't have a great season last year, but he still was pretty good with Zach Wilson, Mike White. I don't even know who else they rolled out there at times quarterbacking that team.
Yep.
So we kind of understand Wilson can be good without a stable quarterback, and I have to think they'll probably go a veteran route again.
And
Rodgers leaves.
Olave proved that he can do it with a mediocre car. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yes.
I mean, car
for 2 years. For 2 years.
For 2 years. So
as a rookie, and so yes, and they have less competition. Let's not be act like Cooper Kupp's going anywhere either. It's still the two of them.
The only thing with Cooper Kupp is he's 30. That's the only thing with him. But he came into the league late too, so
But Olave and Wilson don't have really any competition around them otherwise.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much the same quarterback situation for the most part, and less competition.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
And honestly, McVay is a wild card to me. Every season could be his last.
Yeah, at least that's what everything sounds like. He can't figure out if he's coming or going. 90% of the time. I don't understand it. Like, dude's like 35.
He's super young, but I think he's just over it at this point. He's made tons of money, and he's probably going to make even more being a broadcaster. I think he's watching some of these guys go be broadcasters, and he's like, I can do that. Plus, look at me. People are going to want to watch me, so.
I'd be a head coach, man. Just keep being a head coach. If you're good at it, your job's secured.
It's a grind.
He has it. So yeah, but
it's one of those things that I think
you go into coaching that you sign up for it. Like, don't pretend that it's too much of a grind for you now. If Andy Reid can do it, anybody can do it.
But maybe he tries it out and then goes back if he doesn't. I mean, somebody's going to give him a shot. He leaves coaching for 2-3 years and then decides he's going to come back. Somebody's going to.
You can see the Sean Payton situation like Denver did with New Orleans. Yeah. Make a trade for him. We need we need a head coach. McVay's only 42.
All right, let's talk about this Buffalo Bills wide receiver depth chart. Because we pretty much kind of understand who they have. So it's Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel currently are listed as the 1, 2, and 3 wide receivers, with Mac Hollins and MVS as the backups.
Yes.
How does this make you feel about Josh Allen first and foremost, with Shakir, Coleman, and Samuel being your top 3 options?
So the great thing about Josh Allen is that I think Josh Allen is now in Kansas City Chief territory, in an opportunity and chance to prove that he can do it with a fairly lackluster wide receiving group. I say lackluster because we don't know what Keon Coleman's going to be, right? Not yet, as a rookie. He's got a veteran presence in Curtis Samuel, who, when he's healthy...
To your point, Rashee Rice was also a rookie, so even if Coleman is just as good as him, it's the same situation.
Right, same situation. So now it just becomes whether or not. For me, it really doesn't change anything from a Josh Allen perspective, because what makes Josh Allen so good is his ability to create, which is what Patrick Mahomes does, and rush. I mean, he's got more rushing touchdowns, I think, than Saquon Barkley over the last 3 years, whatever it may be. So that part of it is great for fantasy purposes. It still does not make me worry on a fantasy purpose level. And I don't think it moves me up or down for him. If anything, it would maybe move him up slightly. I don't think it would I don't know how much up he can go, but only because of the fact that I think that it's going to increase more of him putting the team on his shoulders to produce wins for this. Because let's face it, the Jets with Aaron Rodgers and the Dolphins, even though Tua is still a fairly wild card, both those teams are nipping at the heels of Buffalo in the AFC East. So it's not a surefire thing anymore, right? Like, at all. Mm-hmm. Dalton Kincaid has a chance.
And James Cook.
And James Cook in this offense also help alleviate a little bit of that. Cook was starting to gain the trust of Allen last year. Kincaid started coming on a little bit better towards the end of the year. So he has that safety net. If the Bills are truly going to look at this offensive scheme, they might be smart to study the team that's destroyed them the last few years in the playoffs and run this offense through Cook and Kincaid and allow the wide receivers some time to still gel and mesh, because Curtis Samuel's still new, right? Khalil Shakir is the only one that's returning,
And he's
Keon Coleman's new.
sophomore, right? Sophomore?
It's not sophomore or junior, but he's close. Like whatever it is, second or third year.
2-3 years.
So I mean,
And
it's
never really was a starter. So
right. What this does do for me, though, and on top of this, also I want to point out that MVS is actually walking into this situation, and he did this with Kansas City, and so he has experience with this very similar situation. So as far as a locker room presence is concerned, he might actually help a guy like Keon Coleman in this situation. So the wide receiver room is not pretty. I think Keon Coleman's kind of being overdrafted in some cases because of that.
Right.
However, if he's there long term, he's on a rookie deal, so he's going to be there for 4 years with Josh Allen. I can understand why he may be overdrafted if he does develop into what we all think he can be. Right?
Sure. So
I don't think it really affects Josh Allen that much at all.
So for me, it tempers expectations for this season a little bit.
Of course.
I'm still drafting him as one of the top 3 quarterbacks. I'm not changing that, but I'm on with the understanding, kind of like using Patrick Mahomes as a good case study from last year, where you might not be the QB1, but you're still the guy of this team, and you will be for a long time. And you're still going to still be probably a top 5, 6 quarterback. In redraft, maybe he's not the top 5 quarterbacks. If I was looking at redraft, with Lamar, Hurts, with rushing upside also, better wide receiver rooms for both of them.
On ESPN, he is going 1 still for the quarterback.
Yeah, but for me, what I'm saying is I wouldn't.
No, I'm saying for
ESPN
redraft, he's still going 1
sure.
right now. So
but I just this season I don't know if the stats will be there as good. I'm sure there'll be a little bit more rushing touchdowns, but to your point of him feeling like he has to put the team on his back, he's a gunslinger. He's has turnovers as it is, so that worries me a slight bit that he's going to continue having a higher turnover. So again, for me, I just not maybe he doesn't finish as a top 5 quarterback this year. But in a dynasty perspective, I'm still taking him if you want to take him as the quarterback 1 because they'll give him weapons, whether it's after this year or his weapons are good enough. They don't need to. I don't worry past the season. It's just look after seeing what Patrick Mahomes did, and that team won, but that offense was not as good. He still is going to get his numbers. It's just it might not be the quarterback 1 we've seen the last few years. Correct. If you were in a draft, I don't know where their ADPs are or anything like that. Where are you taking? Like, are you considering drafting Khalil Shakir, thinking he's a possible multiple-year wide receiver for this team?
No, I'm taking it more as a depth piece in case he does become that. I would not be taking him if I was still quote unquote in the starter rounds or whatever the hell that even means, because I just draft a team based upon how I feel, like regardless of the starter rounds or whatever. But if I was in the starter rounds, let's say your league starts 10 and you're in the first 10 rounds, I probably would lay off Shakir a little bit, just because it's not a guarantee that they don't draft somebody else next year, right? Like that's the one big thing of the situation. Like you mentioned Mac Hollins, you mentioned MVS, and you mentioned Curtis Samuel. All 3 of those guys have been around the league and veterans, and all 3 of those guys have been borderline. We're not sure if you're going to be with the team again next year, people. And the things that they do provide are safety nets down the road, but they're not going to be long-term guys. For Shakir, it's going to be he needs to go out there and prove that he can do it. So if I'm drafting in that sense, I'm drafting him as a guy who's like, okay, here's a depth piece, because if he does prove it, then I got a guy that I can plug in down the road. I don't want him as a week 1 starter.
Some ADP, some guys around him at the wide receiver room. Romeo Doubs.
Dobbs' ADP is grossly too low.
He's at 143 right now.
Yeah, it's too low.
Overall, I believe
it's too low.
So obviously you're taking Dobbs.
Yeah.
Roman Wilson.
Probably going to take. So this one's hard too because Roman Wilson's a rookie. So upside probably Wilson. I don't know. I'd have to see what the rest of my team looks like.
I'm going to guess you're taking Shakur over DeAndre Hopkins, right?
Yeah.
I mean, outside of a team where you drafted a ton of young wide receivers early and you're taking Hopkins as like a depth,
in my
veteran play.
In my C2C leagues, I'd probably take DeAndre Hopkins. In a regular Devy or Dynasty league, I'm probably going to take Shakir.
Cortland Sutton. Quentin Johnston.
28. No, Shakir. Honestly, I love QJ. I loved him coming out, but there is just something going on with him. I don't know what it is. There's something. So it would be Shakir over QJ.
Shakir.
Absolutely.
And then Jermaine Burton. With the Jamar Chase and T Higgins information.
Probably Burton.
And then Malachi Corley would be the only other one around here.
I would probably take Corley over Shakir too. Okay. I really like Corley. I like Corley a lot, and I don't think Mike Williams is a thing.
So then Keon Coleman is going around 80th overall. Rashee Rice is right by him. Jaden Reed.
For me, I would take both those guys over Keon.
Stephon Diggs.
In my C2C league, probably Diggs. In a Dynasty and Devy, probably Coleman. Because for the viewers out there that are listening that are not part of my C2C league, my college scores combine with my NFL scores in my leagues. So having an older team doesn't necessarily hurt you because your college side makes up for down the road, get the production you can type of situation. So
Cooper Kupp.
Cup. Ugh.
So Coleman might be going a little high to your point of overdrafting, probably a little bit right now. He probably should be a little further down.
Yeah, and it's more just because of the fact that he is in this situation where he is a rookie, and mind you, rookie wide receivers tend to hit a lot higher than rookie running backs or rookie quarterbacks do, right? Like for the most part. Well, I shouldn't say running backs. Rookie running backs and rookie wide receivers tend to hit higher rates than rookie tight ends and rookie quarterbacks do. So
correct, yeah.
It's like you're not really. I don't think it really would hurt you if you preferred Keon Coleman in this situation over some of those guys. It's just for me, I would rather take the guys that look like they're on a trajectory moving upward than a guy that we think is moving upwards. Because let's take a look at Quentin Johnston as an example. We just mentioned him. Yes. Quentin Johnston as an example.
Perfect example, actually.
Look, Laquan Treadwell. N'Keal Harry situation. Jalen Reagor. A lot of these first-round wide receivers. Well, I know Keon was drafted like first pick in the second round, but a lot of these first-round wide receivers or high-drafted wide receivers, they're not. It's not a guarantee, right? Yeah, exactly. It really makes you wonder. Now, I'm a Florida State fan, so I got to see Keon Coleman a lot last year and the year before or whatever. Like, I really love the guy. I think he's got a great personality with a good head on his shoulders, and I think that he loves the game of football and he's having fun, which is what you want out of your receivers, right? Like, that's what you want, especially being a rookie coming in. However, it doesn't necessarily mean it translates to the field, right? Like, it does not necessarily mean it translates to the field.
No, I mean,
I think Keon Coleman would be fine, so I could understand why you take him over these guys, but it's still the what if, like we talk about all the time. It could be a Ferrari, but it could also be a steaming pile of hot dog shit. So
I like the size he has, but that size of wide receiver hasn't hit at the same rate as guys 2 to 3 inches smaller than him. It's just if he can use his size and leverage and separate slightly, he'll be good. If he's like the N'Keal Harry type of wide receiver, he's going to struggle. Yep. So what makes me like him a little more is the mindset he has. It seems like hopefully he is a worker, and it seems like he is. Obviously, I don't know for sure. I'm not there in practice, but to me, he seems like he is a hard worker and works at his craft. So as long as that continues, I think he could be really good. It's just that wide receiver room is just it's such a question mark. And and a lot of times when they're question marks, you take the lower guy because you're going to get him later.
Right.
But both of them are such big question marks. I think I'd rather have Keon at his ADP than Shakur, even though I can get him a little bit later, just because Shakur still also was a later round drafted wide receiver. He was a second, third round pick,
Right.
so it's not like he's just gonna has all this draft capital to prop him up either. All right, let's move on to a worse situation, in my opinion, because at least Buffalo has Kincaid and Cook to kind of alleviate some of the wide receiver, struggles they may have, to the Los Angeles Chargers, who currently is Gus Edwards and Will Dissly as the running back and tight end to alleviate the wide receiver room. So not clearly on the same level. Right now, it's Josh Palmer, Ladd McConkey, and Quentin Johnston listed as their wide receiver ones, with DJ Chark, Darius Davis, Brendan Rice, and Simi Fehoko also in that wide receiver room. Joshua Palmer has had his opportunities. He has not seized them as much as we would hope he would have over the last few years.
I absolutely think he has. I absolutely think he has, because I still think that he has absolutely last year when Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were both out. Josh Palmer had a very good stretch of a good 3-game stretch where he was playing really, really well. And then I think Mike Williams came back, and all of a sudden, whoever that friggin' moron was that was the head coach of the fucking team decided they were just going to completely ignore Palmer once he came back. So when Palmer's had his opportunities, he's actually played very well.
So between weeks 4 through 7, one was a bye week.
Yep.
He had an 86%, 97%, and 98% snap percentage.
Yeah.
Those three weeks. He was the wide receiver 35, wide receiver 38, and then the wide receiver 10.
Yeah, of course.
He had 8 and 7 targets, 3 catches, 4 catches, the 5, 130-some yards, 60 yards, 70 yards. No touchdowns, though.
Yep.
I'm not disagreeing that Palmer has flashed here and there, but I also don't think that even when Allen and Johnston were there at that, because he also got injured, and that's another thing with Josh Palmer. I think he's been injured every season on top of that. So I feel like when he gets a little bit of momentum, he gets injured and it dies. But he's also not, and maybe it was a coaching thing, not seizing that he should have been the wide receiver 2 easily, and he never really took that role, whether it was because of the coaching staff or whatever they saw from him at that point.
I'm a Palmer fan, yes, but I am going to agree with that. But I am still going to err on the side that it was definitely the coaching staff, because Brandon Staley was fucking god awful, and he was literally one of the worst head coaches I think I've ever watched coach games in my life. However, here's the thing that I do like about here's the thing I do like about Josh Palmer in this situation. Is that where we're going with this? Josh Palmer in this situation?
Josh Palmer.
No, okay, all right. I think he's a perfect wide receiver for a Greg Roman offense. I think between size, play style, ability, and talent level, whatever you want to call it, I think he's the perfect wide receiver for this style of offense. Which is why when you say Gus Edwards, and you're like, Gus Edwards has been in a Greg Roman system and been very, very successful in a Greg Roman system before. He did it in Baltimore for years.
Not as a pass catcher.
That's why they have J.K. Dobbins, though.
But that was my point. Cook is a good pass catcher for Buffalo, so he can
right. Oh,
alleviate
yeah.
that type of.
But that's why Dobbins is there, though. Like that's why they have Dobbins. If Dobbins can stay healthy, if he can stay healthy,
another Achilles and knee and everything.
Yes, if he can stay healthy. What I do also like about this is Palmer is the only guy that was really a holdover at the wide receiver spot, other than Darius Davis and QJ, but they were both rookies last year. That was a holdover that they didn't try to trade or get rid of, and that they were basically like, here you go. Like, you are the prototypical wide receiver for this offense. There you go. I'm assuming this is going to lead to a Justin Herbert situation.
No, I mean, I trust Herbert.
Okay.
Just as much as I've trusted him in the past. He's still Justin Herbert to me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Fading him because of a Roman offense. You didn't fade Lamar Jackson. Yeah, and I get it. Justin Herbert doesn't have the rushing upside Lamar does, but he's a 1,000-time better passer than.
And he can still move.
Right, and he doesn't need to. I mean, okay, maybe we'll see. He's always had Keenan Allen, but even when he didn't have Keenan Allen, he still was just fine as a passer. It was a lot of that was coaching. You're that bad if Josh Palmer is that good, and if Josh Palmer shows up this year, he's literally going to show how bad Brandon Staley was.
For sure,
he was not. But I want to let Lad McConkey is going right now ahead of Palmer and Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I'm probably more apt to take DJ Chark than I would QJ.
Ooh, okay.
Do you want to know why? The primary reason why I would take Chark over QJ is because even though he has not been the same guy that we all thought he was going to be, despite some of the flashes he had when he was at Carolina or whatever, he's a veteran who's been around the sport long enough that he can end up being a guy that may surprise and do. I mean, not like wide receiver 1 or 2 numbers, but a guy that I would see sticking around with the Chargers just because he knows the offense and is a safety net for Herbert. Whereas QJ is going to be a guy who's going to go by the wayside of Laquan Treadwell and N'Keal Harry. He's going. That QJ is starting to look like that guy. So
I don't think that. I think
I do. Unfortunately, unless QJ goes out, and I hope QJ comes out and shuts me the hell up. I think that's just the way it's going. Like it just seems that way.
I still believe, because I thought he was a good wide receiver last year, and yes, he has drop issues, but if he can clean that up, and say what you want about Jim Harbaugh, he is still a good coach. He's always been able to elevate players around him. I mean, Michael Crabtree looked like a good wide receiver in Jim Harbaugh's offense.
Michael Crabtree was a good wide receiver, though.
Yeah, sure, somewhat. But he's always been. I mean, he also made Colin Kaepernick look like a good quarterback. On top of that,
fair. That's fair.
So, but everywhere he's gone, he's always had winning teams. So, if Quentin Johnson is getting on the field, it's not because he was drafted in the first round from the previous regime. It's because Jim Harbaugh believes he's getting better. So early season will be an indication, and obviously that doesn't help you for your startup drafts. But I'm taking the belief we had in him as a rookie last year and thinking it's going to continue. Now, Lad McConkey is going as the wide receiver 31 at pick 71 right now. Joshua Palmer is going as the wide receiver 39 at pick 170.
And this is another situation where the Lad McConkey deal feels like the Keon Coleman deal, and it feels like every other rookie fever deal where you may get a Ferrari, but you may end up getting a. So I get he was the first wide receiver drafted by this regimen, but McConkey's not a guy who I think I'd want over Palmer long term, because I think Palmer just has a higher ceiling, personally. I could be wrong. It's just how I've always felt that way about Palmer.
I mean, looking at these ADPs, I'll wait for Palmer instead of taking McConkey where he's going.
I just don't think McConkey's a 1. That's my problem.
I don't think either one of them is going to be your long-term 5-6 year wide receiver 1 for that long. Palmer has the better opportunity, I think, to do it in the short term, and I'll take the 100 ADP difference on top of that. You know, the 8 rounds I'm going to be able to get him later and take, you know, a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's going around Lad McConkey. A guy like Brian Thomas, who's going around Lad McConkey.
See, Brian Thomas gives me the exact same vibes that Palmer does, in the sense that they both have a higher ceiling to be the 1 for a length of period of time compared to Lad McConkey.
But that's what I'm saying. George Pickens, I'll take him. I'll take Debo. I'll take T. Higgins. I'll take Tank Dell even over Lad McConkey.
See, I'm not taking Tank Dell over Lad. I think I'm probably the lowest person on Tank out of everybody I know. It's not that I dislike Tank. It's just I do not believe what we saw last year is ever going to be sustainable for him, and primarily because of his size. That's why. I think he's being overdrafted. I think he's being overvalued. I think he's being overhyped because of what we did see last year. It's just, for me, when it comes to Tank Dell, it's because of his size, and historically what we see in the NFL for somebody his size, it is not sustainable. And the injury last year was a freak injury, but guess what? As a wide receiver, regardless if you have to do it, you have to be on the field and be able to block. Not in that situation, but you have to be able to be on the field and block. So you have to do it if you're going to be.
We put him as the freaking lead blocker.
But I'm just saying, like, across the board, like, you have to do that stuff. So I think Lad has an opportunity early because of the wide receiver room around him. Like you said, it's not a long term where he's going to be the wide receiver 1. If you can get a couple years of wide receiver 2 numbers out of him, you're happy. It's just you're almost at the point where he needs to be Cooper Kupp to make up for where you're drafting him at this point in startup drafts, taking him that far ahead of Josh Palmer. You need a Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua season out of him to make up, unless he's your 7th wide receiver and you want all wide receivers. Yeah. No, I agree. I like Lad McConkey. I do like him as a player. I don't see him being as a true 1, and I feel he's being overdrafted. First and foremost, Greg McLean here. Thank you for joining us, and appreciate you chiming in and commenting as well. Feel free to get involved with the comments. Feel free to get involved with the chat. I know that we're going to be wrapping up here soon, but it's just for future references. We're here Thursday between 8:15 and 8:30 start time. About an hour to an hour 15-minute show roughly every Thursday, or we try to do it every Thursday. So for sure. Yeah. No, and to go back to your point, man, just like in general, like I understand wanting to take a guy in that area where Lad is going, and that has kind of already somewhat done it over a guy that you're not sure what you're getting, I guess.
I think the rookie fever is just it gets us all the time. It gets fantasy players so much.
It used to get me a lot, man. Like
you gotta learn to temper those expectations a slight bit. Yes, you may have huge faith in Lad McConkey, but understand he could still also be Hunter Renfrow. That's still the realm of. It's not like at Georgia, Lad McConkey was putting up 1,000 yards in that offense. He he still was only, he's reliable, but reliable isn't always what you want for fantasy football. Just because you're going to be able to catch 3 balls for 33 yards because you got 3 first downs, and that's the role
maybe
you have on that team.
And maybe a touchdown.
Hopefully. That's tight end numbers. Those are your numbers you're helping for your tight end to get for you. So not your wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
Or 3.
Yeah, or 3.
So it's just with rookie, wide receivers, you understand they might not. Even Rashee Rice, he didn't come out of the gate last year and just become.
Nope.
He took time to work his way in that offense. Justin Jefferson wasn't just like out of the gate.
Well,
I don't think he even early in his career.
I think you might have stretched a little bit. Might have grasped at straws a little bit on that one with Justin Jefferson. I think.
Nope. It was the third game he finally did. But the first 2 weren't great. 4 points and 7 points aren't great.
What was his third game?
30.
Okay.
And then 39 in the 6th game. And then anybody had 5 and 5 and 9 and 9. He just had some really big games that year.
Well, yeah, but I mean that
CeeDee Lamb though was another one. He didn't come out being this like it wasn't until these last couple of years did CeeDee become the player people kind of expected from him.
Yeah, fuck the Cowboys. So.
Sure.
If you're a Dallas fan out there and you just heard me say that, I'm not sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm not sorry.
I mean, I don't mind the team as much, but the fans, you can be more realistic. Be more realistic.
No, it's the team too. It's the team.
Sure, for you. For me, it's not. I don't care that much because they don't bother me.
Who is your most favorite team in the NFL? As a Tampa Bay fan,
it's the Eagles.
The Seahawks?
Eagles.
Oh, yeah, the Eagles. They've been pretty. The Eagles have been, and it's more the fan base for Philadelphia.
It's the fan base that gets me. Yeah.
Sorry, Sam.
Eagles fans.
Sorry, Sam. Sam is actually one of the more realistic Phillies fans that I've spoken to.
I know a few, and for those people, I was happy they won the Super Bowl. For those people. For the rest of them, I hated it because it was so wonderful to hold over their heads that they had 0 Super Bowls. They all talked this big game.
I hated it for one reason and one reason only, and that was because Nick Foles has been enshrined in some kind of weird fucking bubble, and that dude is awful, and he absolutely should have to pay back all the money he stole from everybody after that Super Bowl year.
One great playoff run sometimes is all you need. I mean, one great run. I mean, what was it? Matt Flynn? One game got him paid.
One game
got him paid. I mean,
Brock Osweiler.
Yeah, with a couple handful of games. Castle 1 season taking over Brady got him happens all the time.
Yeah, it does. All right. I think that's it for tonight. Do we have anything else?
No. Nope. College football's on right now. Colorado's down 6 to North Dakota State.
Come on, North Dakota State. Let's go. Look, listen. We were just talking about fans and how they destroy teams. I loved Dion as a player. He was one of my favorite players of all time. I actually liked him at Jackson State as a head coach.
Yep.
I have now, between all the reports of everything coming out from Colorado as him as a head coach and the fans of Deion Sanders, it's made me hope Colorado doesn't win a single freaking game for the rest of the year.
He needs a little bit more humble with that team. He walked in there and they treated him like a god from the beginning because of how well he did at Jackson State. And he did a wonderful job down there. But walked in like he was going to run college football. And I am so happy Oregon last year just piled it onto them, didn't hold back one bit.
Yeah, me too, for sure. So I think that's going to do it for us here tonight on Dynasty Academy. Not sure what we got on the on the slate for next week at all or anything along those lines. You got anything?
No,
You gonna be here next week? No show next week.
no,
Okay.
no.
All
It
right.
is my wedding anniversary
That's what I thought. That's
next
why I
Thursday.
thought it was. Yeah. So, alrighty. Yeah. That's going to
Anybody
do
wants to send me a gift?
it.
Money works.
We'll throw his Venmo down there.
I think that you could send money over like Facebook and stuff now. So
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, whatever. Facebook, Venmo, whatever it is.
message Dynasty Academy on X. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. So, and that's going to do it for us from here at Dynasty Academy on Thursday night. It's
Football's back.
Football's back, and football never really left.
Fantasy football related
fantasy football for the
back.
NFL is back for sure. So, but yeah. So until then, have a good night, and until next week, peace out.